Okay, today we're going to talk about the science of reading. What is the science of reading? The definition of science of reading is based on a half-century's worth of scientific-based research focusing on reading and the issues with reading and writing. The research has been conducted across the world and in a wide array of areas, not simply reading and writing. Why is it important? Well, it's important because it tells us three important elements: how we read, how we learned to read, and what does it mean about how we should be taught to read. There are 5 elements of reading, and there are 5 reading instructional elements: phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. We will dive into each of these elements individually on the following slides. Phonemic awareness. Phonemic awareness has to do with a reader being able to hear a sound and manipulate the individual sounds in words or syllables. One way to help students is letter recognition, and an activity for that is pointing to a letter and having the students tell you what letter that is. You could do it in ABC order. Most students will know their alphabet, so when you start at the beginning, the students will automatically know that that is A because it's at the beginning of the alphabet. If you randomize it and you point to a different letter like M, it may take them a little while to comprehend that that is an M, because for letter recognition, the fluency of knowing the alphabet is A through Z, but when you point out a letter individually, it may take students a little bit of time to realize and recall that this is an M. Another way to help with phonemic awareness is to play the I Spy game. And with the I Spy game, you can look at a text or a passage that you have been reading as a class. You can tell the students, I spy with my eye, and find words that begin with letters that start with an A and are lowercase, or you could do an uppercase M, and that would help with the phonemic awareness, so they would be able to find those letters, and it would be an automatic. They would then know how to acknowledge the letter. A third way is writing letters, and that is simply writing out the letters. Write out the letter A, write out the letter B, and that would help the students practice writing their letters. The next element is phonics. And phonics is all about teaching students how to decode and recognize words. One way to help with phonics is the synthetic approach, wherein students sound out the words. Another way to help with phonics is the analogy-based instruction, where students would rhyme words. For example, eat, seat, meet, etc. Going back to the synthetic approach of sounding out words, it would be like if the word was cat and they were k, at, k, at. A third way to help with phonics would be through the analytic phonics instruction, where you blend consonants and work to create as many words as you can. For example, if you wanted to do a blended consonant with a T and an H, you would have students come up with words like the, that, there, them, and so on. Fluency is being able to read without conscious effort at the appropriate age level and with prosody, as well as with correct phrasing. One way to help with fluency is reading practice. With reading practice, students are reading daily and practicing with guidance, as well as monitored as well as monitored having interaction and receiving feedback. Another technique to help with fluency is to model read. For model reading, teachers and or parents are reading out loud to students, showing them what fluency and sometimes disfluency looks like. By modeling reading fluency and disfluency, children will learn from various behaviors of fluent readers. A third technique to help with fluency is the wide and repeated reading. This will help students with reading for automaticity by reading a passage multiple times for fluency to be achieved. Our next element is vocabulary. Vocabulary is a body of words that are heard, spoke, read, and written. One of the strategies to help with vocabulary is word walls. With this strategy, vocabulary, words, pictures, and terms is placed on a wall so students can refer to it and have that quick reference. It is best to have word walls for all core areas. I will note that in my classroom, I have a corner where I have the word walls. And on my word walls, I have one word wall that is ELA because we have a lot of terms for that. And then for the other, I have math. And then underneath math, I have science and social studies. So I have it for all of them. However, my ELA and my math are the main focus of them. And my social studies and science, those terminologies and information, those also go on there. They don't have as much space as the other two. Another strategy would be to utilize the Frayer model. Within the Frayer model, you have the students have a word. They would provide the definition. Based off of the definition and what they know, they would put down characteristics of that word. They would also provide examples of the word. And then non-examples. So what is it not? So if the word was reptile, it would give the definition of the reptile, and some of the characteristics would have to be like, for instance, scaly, land. What is it? You could then put what they are, snakes, of that nature, crocodiles, alligators, what are they not? And then the non-examples would be, what is this not? What is not a reptile? A cow is not a reptile. A horse is not a reptile. A salamander is not a reptile. Just to help make that clear. And then another fun learning activity for vocabulary is drawing pictures. And this would be a great classroom activity where the classroom is split into two groups. One group would draw a vocabulary word, would draw the picture of the vocabulary word with no words. The other group would then have to guess what that vocabulary word is based off of the picture on the board. Comprehension is the final element in the science of reading. And it is the understanding and ability to retell what was read. Comprehension is one of the hardest things for students to grasp. One strategy for helping with comprehension is click or clunk. Within click or clunk, students read a passage to the end. At the end of the paragraph, students think about what was read. For the student, did the reading make sense? And did they understand what was read? If so, they click. If the reader doesn't understand, they clunk, and they need to figure out what was wrong and what needs to be done to make it click. Another strategy is for students to summarize what was read. A third strategy is fix up. To utilize this strategy, students must model with the think aloud portion of think aloud portion, and as the teacher reads, commenting out loud about her thinking. And it's very imperative that this is modeled for students, because students, it's hard for them to understand what comprehension is. And within my classroom, I know they get really stuck when they read something and then they go answer questions, and they get frustrated because they don't know the answer right away. And so I have to tell them, comprehension is a learning. We have to learn that. It's a strategy. We will learn it. It is okay to go back and reread. And I do model that within my classroom on a daily basis. And initially, I was doing it to help them understand, but more and more, I was being too hard on myself initially, because I was getting frustrated because I couldn't remember the answer. And I showed them, this is okay. Everyone has to do this. And so it's been one of those things that's worked really well with my students. The 5-block model for reading and writing essential model is a framework for ensuring that all students are scheduled and focused on reading and writing daily in the 5 elements of reading instruction each day. For first through third grades, it's suggested to have 180 uninterrupted block minutes for students. The breakdown would be 30 minutes for writing, 30 minutes for fluency, 30 minutes for comprehension, 30 minutes for word work, and small group reading instruction would be 60 minutes. For the fluency segment, it is suggested to split the time. For the first 10 minutes, the teacher would instruct the whole class on specific instructions for fluency. The remaining 20 minutes, the students would either work in whole groups or small group activities, focusing solely on fluency. Another activity could be for students to read and reread passages to help them to be more fluent and improve their comprehension. I do need to go back to the writing. I've missed that. For the writing segment, this would be writer's workshop time. During this time, the teacher would focus on the core parts of the writing curriculum, working on organization, word and sentence fluency, the ideas, conventions, and the presentations. Teachers can help students learn and write in various text formats, whether it is a narrative, a persuasive, an opinion, and so forth. For the comprehension portion, it is important that the teacher model the activity. Again, like I said, comprehension is very important, and it's not given enough focus. Teachers must think out loud so that they can show students what it means to actively comprehend. This element takes time to scaffold. This element takes time to scaffold out to the students, meaning you can't just say, okay, here's how it's done, now go with it. You have to actually show them, and you have to lead them. You have to guide them. You have to think of this element model as a path to comprehension, and each portion, you are the guiding flashlight to help lead them down that path. Teachers must use caution and show how the step works. When you work as a whole class for comprehension, you can use leading questions. As you break the students into smaller groups to work with others to fully understand and gain confidence with this element, the students can support each other with the learning process. As the students gain confidence in their ability to understand, they will then be able to independently answer the questions and have details to support their answers. Again, this does not happen overnight. This takes a process. It may take 2 months, 3 months, an entire semester, probably 75% of your school year for some students. And that's okay, as long as we are working towards that. The fourth facet of this model is word work. For 30 minutes, the teacher will work on various tasks. For kindergarten through first, the work may be working on upper and lowercase alphabet letters or listening for sounds in words. It could also be working on CV, CVC, etc. words. For second to third grade students, they may be working on multi-syllabic words as well as spelling to understand. For fourth through middle school, the focus is to increase reading and writing vocabularies and learning to store meanings of words. Our final facet is small group differentiated reading instruction practice. Within this time, it is important to allow for students to complete this task. There are 6 groups that can be identified where the reading instruction would be beneficial for them. It is important to place the students in the appropriate groups so as to help them with the skills needed. For example, if you have a student who can automatically read and pronounce every word but may not understand these words, they would be working in the group focusing on comprehension. If you have a student who is a slow word caller and reads accurately, but so slow that the comprehension is not there, you would have that student work on a developing vocabulary comprehension strategy. You would not place these 2 students together in the same group because the skills needed are not necessarily the same. Connecting the dots. The connection between the science of reading and the breakdown of the reading-writing model is solid. As a reminder, when the studies were conducted for the science of reading, it was broken down to 3 parts of reading: how we read, how we learn to read, and lastly, how we should be taught to read. With the implementation of the reading-writing model, supported by the 5 instructional elements, educators are now able to see where the connection is and how educators can effectively model, instruct, and support students in their journey to becoming skilled readers and writers. Are there any questions? Thank you.